So the big question is this: how can dyslexics like us create a place, a community, a tribe, where people at any stage of life can come and solve any challenge, amplify their strengths, and ultimately help them become who they were meant to be, or in other words, conquer their dyslexia? That is the question, and this show is the answer. My name's Theo Goff, and welcome to the Conquering Dyslexia podcast.
Hi guys, I hope you're doing alright. I'm sorry for the late start. So I want to talk to you today, and I have a little discussion with you about what to do when things don't go your way, and when things seem so clear, and yet things just don't work, and it makes no sense. It makes no logical sense why these things that you try don't work. For example, when you're at work and you're completing something, you mean like a Word document, and to send it off, or at school you're completing like an assignment to hand in, and then you check it over, you do the best you can, and you hand it in, and there's still 20 mistakes on it. And you try that thing, and yet you still muck up, and yet you prepare, you do the right stuff, you work really hard, and it doesn't turn out the way you want. And I think as dyslexics, we're used to things not working the way we want. And a lot of times we cope. We cope because we have to. But sometimes we don't. Like we cope, and yes, it's horrible, and yes, it's bad, and yes, we can get upset, yes, we can get emotional. But I think sometimes we cope, and we just go into it, and we just basically cope. We don't prepare, we don't have a strategy for what to do when things go wrong. It just happens to us, and we go, all right, here it happened again, it feels crap, and I feel like this, but hopefully in a couple of days I'd feel better, and let's try again. I think that's the natural way dyslexics approach a lot of things that they find hard, and they fail at, and they really want to do. And the purpose of this today is kind of like to share share my journey with what's been happening with conquering dyslexia and all the things and finish the book challenge, and about sort of basically the struggles I've had and what I've done to help myself, what I've done to it's not really the strategy in terms of how to fix a problem, but it's terms to what do I do in myself? How do I think? What's my process of dealing with it, and how it's changed over time? Because beforehand, because remember I've done a lot of stuff like trying to set up events, try and have my book out and try and format lots of stuff, and I've do all these stuff in the past that make total clear sense to me, but then as I try to implement that, as I try to do that, it'd be absolutely awful and absolutely terrible. For example, it took me weeks and weeks. Basically, I'd have a book, and I wrote my first version of Conquering Dyslexia book, and I'd write it, and I'd finish writing it. I'm like, yes, it took me a couple of years to finish writing it. And okay, let's self-publish, because I've heard a lot about self-publishing. And I self-published on Amazon, and I went on the websites, I watched all the videos you could watch. I was doing all the stuff, but they had to format the words in a certain way. And I was doing it, I was watching all the tutorials you can imagine. And after a week of spending 6 hours a day on this problem, and I was hating myself, I was like, we have to get this out there as soon as possible. I remember after a week, it was more than a week, it was probably like a month. Because I tried a lot for a couple of days and then give up. Because I'd try a lot, and I'd work really hard, and I thought it'd work, and it wouldn't make sense to me. And I think it took me actually a couple of months for me to decide, look, let's stop struggling and try and do it this way. Let's get a publisher, and they do it. So I spent £300, got a publisher, and they did it, and that was another route I went down. And that was hard. Sending it off, them sending it back and seeing loads of mistakes, them sending it off, sending it back, seeing loads of mistakes. And I would buy 25 copies, not noticing the mistakes in the book, spending a couple £100, and they'd all come, and they realised they all got the same mistakes in. And then all this stuff. And it's funny now when I look back at it, but all these problems were happening. And I remember how I used to deal with it is, because I used to put everything into doing it, and it didn't work. I would go, why is it not working? And then couldn't find out why, and I would give up. I'd be like, I can't move any more forward, do the other things I want to do unless I solve this thing. Because this is a big step. There's no point in me moving forward if I can't solve this step. And that's how I used to think. It took me weeks and weeks and weeks to solve this step. And when I did, it used to be 1 millimeter change, 1 millimeter move. Because I spent months editing my audio thing. Because I spent a couple of weeks creating my audiobook. Spent months trying to edit it myself. And then I sent it off to I sent it off to loads of different people to edit, and I was paying a lot of people. And this one company basically said, look, there's the original copies that you said there. It's got loads of basically incorrect words, and when you're doing an audiobook, I have to repeat what I say a lot of times and make a lot of mistakes because of reading and translate to spoken word is sometimes difficult. So, but these people were like, okay, we can edit what you've edited and move on from there, but it'll be a lot less quality because I done some bad stuff. I don't know editing, I guessed, and or they said we can do it ourselves, for a bit more price and do it from the original copies, which is easier for them. So I spent a bit more money for them to do it, but from the original copies, because I had this big problem. But then the solution was really simple: get someone else to do it. The solution is really simple with Facebook: just click on this button, do this button, and I wish I could. And last week or so, even longer than that, I wanted to explain like a few troubles that I've had that are actually quite big, and how I cope with it, and this keeps on happening. Like, for example, it took me, sorry, I've got a certain amount of time I do this podcast, and it took me about 4 goes for me to actually do this. So I tried it and it wouldn't work. And I switched on my phone and I turned it on and it would work. So anyway, this is like a micro little problem that annoyed me. But like I've had this problem with my basically Facebook Manager. Because Facebook Manager helps you with proper like ad running and proper understanding it. And I've done a lot of research on it. I was like, okay, I need this. And so I was trying to do Facebook Manager, and I did it about like 8 months ago. I created the Facebook Manager. And it's different than your Facebook page or that stuff. And I created it and it wouldn't work. I got really annoyed. I couldn't do all the things I started to do. And then after ages to try and work on it, I decided to basically delete it as long as I could do things I want to on my normal Facebook. Because basically I set up this Facebook Manager and I couldn't access my Facebook page, what I did all these lives on. And I got really annoyed. But anyway, I thought I solved the problem to do what I want to do. But then there's this ads training that I want to go on. Sorry for going in detail, but it's got there's a reason behind it. But there's this ads training I want to go on to understand a bit more about ads and SEO and other complex stuff. There's this thing called a Facebook pixel that I wanted, but I couldn't access this thing called a Facebook pixel, basically because the Facebook Manager still was disabled. I worked around the problem. I didn't solve it. It was still disabled, and because this was disabled, I couldn't get this thing done. And I tried forever that time, and even because I know myself with the experience is this language is not good for me. It's not good for me at all. I get insane, I act crazy, because once it just doesn't work. But basically I was like, okay, I asked about 10, 15 people from loads of different places. I'll pay you money, just fix the problem. None of them would fix the problem for me, even though I paid them money. Because I know in their world it's a very simple solution, but in my world it's a very complex solution. Anyway, at the weekend, Dad came around. I said I had this problem and he wanted to come out anyway. So he came around. And he came around at 10, he left at 4, I think, or 3, and we had lunch in between. And the whole time we were there, we were trying to fix this Facebook problem. And because this Facebook problem was bad, and because I couldn't verify my business account, it went on one place to my old website, from the old website to another place, and all these complex things, and basically went down this rabbit hole. And I was annoyed. And so all of that happened, and we couldn't fix it. We learnt more about the problem, but I couldn't fix the problem. And then basically on Friday, on my Finish the Book Challenge, this was the day that I tell people about the universal reading method, and how this method integrates with all the things. And Craig Collins was supposed to come on, and we planned to do a Facebook Live with it. But we tested it about 3-4 different times on all these different platforms, and it wouldn't work. So I got really annoyed. It was like getting late on Friday. I was knackered. I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's schedule some other time in the weekend. So we scheduled Sunday. We did it Sunday. It was amazing. I did it Sunday in the evening. I was tired, but we finally did it, even though there was problems getting started. But guess what? The Zoom recording didn't save. I needed a Zoom recording saved to send it to everyone else, and you can have a recording of it. But it didn't save. How annoying is that? After trying it didn't work, and trying this other way and didn't work, and all these having problems with people booked in can't do it, and all this things when you want something to work but it doesn't. You think it's simple but it doesn't work, and then you can question yourself and you say, oh, it's because I'm stupid, it's because I'm dumb, it's because I look like this, because I dress like this, because I'm the sort of person that made this happen. The truth is you're not. The truth is it's not about who you are, it's not about what you can and what you can't do. The truth is it's about learning. It's about learning. All your mistakes you make, I made loads of mistakes, all the mistakes that people make, it's just learning. Now that's cheesy, I know people say it, but as dyslexics you have to remind yourself of it every single day. And yes, it's a learning curve. When you make a mistake, you learn it. And yes, it's a mistake that you hate having the mistake. And yes, it takes very long to solve. But guess what? You're learning. I always think of like this. I'm doing the best I can with what I have. As long as I'm doing the best I can with what I have, I'm happy. That's it. And I have to schedule my environment and create my environment around me to give my best. And today I was really ill. Not really, or that's an over exaggeration, but on the mornings I get up at 5 and do this little morning walk in the dark with the dogs with Lola. And I got up, I went to bed a bit late and I tossed and turned all night. I didn't go sleep properly. When I was walking Lola, I felt really cold. I felt really, really, really cold. So I had to jump on and that sort of stuff. And I got back and I still felt freezing. And I was supposed to have a little workout, but I felt like I couldn't. I felt like my body wasn't there. And normally after my workout, I'd have a cold shower. But I didn't have a cold shower, I had a hot shower because I was just so miserable. Even just like, I don't like this, I don't like this. And then I'm at work now, and today's a little bit of a challenge. But don't worry, it's not COVID and anything like that. I've tested it. But so guys, what I'm saying is a little framework to follow. That when things don't work out, because let me tell you something. If you're not making mistakes, I believe you're not trying hard enough. It's a good belief to have, isn't it? If I'm not making mistakes, if I'm not trying and failing new things, guess what? I'm not growing, I'm not learning. I'm having the same routine that I know works, that doesn't excite me, that doesn't even make me grow. It's just making mistakes. And I don't make mistakes, sorry. But when you make mistakes, here's what I used to do. I used to make it so much meaningful to me and say, I can't do anything else until I solve this big problem. And that used to stop me for days. Days that I could be do other stuff. But now what I say is, okay, this is a problem. I tried working on it. Now let's leave that for some other time and let's do this other stuff. Let's work around it, and yes, we'll come back to it. Yes, the problem is still there, but now, because I know myself, if sometimes when I'm working on something and I can't work on it anymore, it annoys me. And I get really frustrated and I can't think straight. And that's just, I have to get out, I have to walk dogs. When I was actually in quarantine and just staying in my house, nowhere else, I would walk the dogs 3 to 4 times a day. Little walk, just clear my head so I can restart and do the things I wanted to do. But guys, I hope, so the framework of today is basically, when you have problems, when things don't turn out the way we want them to do, don't negatively focus on the problem. Don't focus on the problem. Focus on the solution. And if you know yourself, like for example, if you just know you're getting annoyed and you're not going to have the solution now, go away, do something else and come back to it later. Could be that day, could be that week. Could be you schedule someone else to go with it. But don't obsess over the problem. Just work around the problem and do other things that make you feel better. Because once you're in the state that you're angry and you're frustrated and you can't make it work, that's when things don't work. Guys, I hope you got a lot of value from this. And bye.